The mark of the beast is coming. Depending on where you are, it's already here. Of course, I'm referring to digital IDs, the dystopian technology that's being rolled out around the world. Over the last few months, there have been digital ID developments in almost every country, but you'd be hard-pressed to name any. It seems the media doesn't want the people to know what's happening. My name is Jessica, and today I'm going to explain what digital IDs are, bring you up to speed on their recent developments around the world, and tell you how you can protect yourself from this terrifying tech. As with a physical ID, a digital ID allows you to prove that you are who you claim to be. And as with a physical ID, a digital ID is created by providing biometric information of some kind. It can be your fingerprints or a photo of your face. And of course, physical and digital IDs are issued and managed by governments. But the devil is truly in the details. The biggest difference between physical and digital IDs is that physical IDs are difficult to confiscate or change. The government would literally have to take it from you. With a digital ID, however, the government could just change your details on the system without your consent. Another difference between physical and digital IDs is that you have different types of physical IDs: passports, driver licenses, health cards, etc. This segregation of information protects your privacy and gives you more control over your identity. With a digital ID, however, all these IDs are rolled into one. In other words, you could say that physical IDs are decentralized, where digital IDs are centralized. This is terrifying when you consider the fact that many governments have been actively working to connect digital IDs to all sorts of public and private services, including your ability to access social media. This begs the question of where this digital ID push is coming from. If you watched our viral video about digital IDs, you'll know that it's ultimately coming from the United Nations, specifically its Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs. The SDGs mandate in digital IDs in every country by 2030, among other things. If you watched our video about how the UN works, you'll know that it's been using a network of public and private institutions to ensure that SDGs are met in every country. These include the likes of the World Economic Forum, or WEF, whose most controversial ideas fundamentally have their roots in SDGs. When it comes to digital IDs, however, the three entities that have been the most involved are the United Nations Development Programme, or UNDP, the World Bank, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. These three entities have been working to roll out digital IDs in every country around the world. That's not a conspiracy theory, by the way. The president of the World Bank has explicitly mentioned the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation as being one of the key players in digital ID development. Their initiatives appear to be guided by the UNDP digital strategy, which was first revealed back in 2019, the same year that the WEF partnered with the UN to push its SDGs. In 2022, the UNDP released a report titled Digital Strategy 2022 to 2025, which contained a roadmap for the digital ID rollout. As the title suggests, the digital strategy seeks to have digital IDs in every country by 2025. Believe it or not, it looks like most countries are on track to roll out their digital IDs by this deadline. The result could be a digital dystopia from which there is no escape, where pandemic-type restrictions are the norm. Let's see how much progress has been made, shall we? And by the way, if you're enjoying the video so far, be sure to smash that like button to give it a boost. Now, I'll start by saying that almost all the digital ID development updates I'm about to review come from a single website titled Biometric Update. It's a surprisingly objective resource for digital ID-related developments, and we suggest you check it regularly to stay up to date. The link is in the description.
We interrupt this programme for an emergency crypto weather forecast. Get ready for a whirlwind of savings. We're seeing some high-pressure sign-up bonus systems forming in the northeast, with some exchanges offering up to $40,000. In the south, we'll be seeing some heavy discounts on hardware wallets, so watch out for those if you're going to be out and about. And then in central areas, there's a high chance of trading fee discounts, which should be settling in later on. So be on the lookout for up to 60% off there. Lush! For the
As if you didn't have enough on your plate, we're sleepwalking into a war with Iran by bombing the Yemen. Do you want this war? Oh, sorry, you're paying for it. Hello there, you Awakening Wonders. Thanks for joining us on our voyage to truth and freedom that we are undertaking together. Avoiding war, hopefully uniting in a way that means that they won't be able to exploit and control us through cultural war techniques and constant amplification of fear. To become a supporter of our work, click the link in the description. You get an extra video like this every single week and early access to our content as well as exclusive interviews. You will love it and you'll be supporting us as we create a movement to oppose this tyranny together. Now, you will have heard, if you watch Tucker Carlson or Alex Jones or look out your window once in a while, that there's an imperialist war escalating in the Middle East. We're aware of what's happening in Gaza, and now in the Yemen there are skirmishes, strikes and attacks against Houthi rebels that might lead to a full-scale war with Iran because that's where they get their backing. Let's have a look at who will benefit from such a conflict and whether or not that's you. First of all, Tucker Carlson has tweeted, Blinken claims we're bombing Yemen to protect oppressed poor people and no doubt protect democracy. Please. This is the next step towards full-scale war with Iran, which the foreign policy ghouls in Washington have been fantasizing about for decades. Keep that in mind as this progresses. There's a lot going on this year. Elections in your country, elections in my country, Disease X on its way. There's a lot to think about. What's going on in Gaza, Russia, Ukraine, still being funded. And now it seems like a tweak in the direction of war with Iran. Now remember, it seems like a million years ago, but it was probably 6 months ago, when those boxes were found in Trump's possession and people said, those bloody boxes, even though, Biden had boxes as well. Well, Trump apparently kept those boxes to demonstrate that it wasn't him that was lobbying and advocating for war with Iran, but in fact, the establishment. And as you know, Iran is one of the countries that always crops up on those lists for new American century and who we got to take out and who's got just a bit too much oil for our liking. So let's see how this current conflict and escalation, as well as being an awful human rights crisis and leading to unnecessary death, is part of, apparently, a globalist plan. Let's check it out together. Alex Jones also says Iran is sucking us into a trap, which is an appalling and unpleasant image. The US-owned cargo ship was just hit by a missile off the coast of Yemen. Let's have a look at the legacy media reporting on this story and some comments from Secretary of State Antony Blinken and see where the establishment want you to go with your thinking before giving you some helpful alternatives.
We have some significant breaking news just into us.
Breaking news, there's a graphic. We're telling you it's significant. Get ready to believe me.
As we have learned now that the U.S. and British military have launched strikes against targets in Yemen.
Yemen. Okay? Are we supposed to not like Yemen? You've always been supposed to not like Yemen. It's Yemen now. But wasn't it Russia? Yemen. But Gaza? Yemen. Yemen. As Bob Marley might have said. Well, I think he was quite pro-peace, wasn't he? That's not relevant now.
Areas of Yemen controlled by the Houthis. This is according to 2 U.S. officials. This, of course, comes in the wake of those Houthi rebel strikes on ships in the Red Sea, those strikes on commercial ships that we've been talking about now for weeks. It is, of course, the potential for a big escalation of the growing conflict in the Middle East. You
know those commercial ships that you'd never thought about before or heard of before? They've been hit by missiles, so let's get this escalation on the road. It's war.
U.S. forces say they were able to knock out radar and air defense systems. A newly released video shows Houthi rebels promising to retaliate for those strikes.
Those bloody Houthi rebels coming around here, stealing my job, shooting my kids, nicking my crops. I don't know what I'm supposed to think about the Houthi rebels yet, but I know I don't like them, and I know I'm willing to pay a lot of taxes to ensure their way of life is stamped out now.
Today, a U.S.-owned cargo ship was hit by a ballistic missile off the coast of Yemen. That's according to U.S. Central Command. The attack by Iranian-backed Houthi militants caused no injuries or significant damage, but it follows Friday's retaliatory strikes by the United States and Britain.
Okay, so there you go. That's the overview now. We're all well versed in what's going on in the Yemen. There's these Houthis. There were some commercial ships. And I think we all get a sense of of where this leads. It leads to, now we're going to get some oil fields from Iran. I mean, is it going that way? I mean, if you think back to the Iraq war, just one continent away from Iran, don't you feel like at the beginning you went, is this just to like get resources and collapse their whole infrastructure and take over the country and offer opportunities? And people went, don't be ridiculous. There's weapons of mass destruction over there, you idiots. And then we found out it was that thing that you instantaneously thought. Well, we can watch this now in real time. Here's Antony Blinken, Secretary of State, and reportedly a very silly person, here to give you his perspective on the whole debacle.
These attacks by the Houthis are hurting people around the world. Most of all, the poorest.
That's amazing. The Houthis, these are not like Ewoks or some friendly little guys. These are real bastards. I woke up this morning, I looked under my duvet, there was a Houthi. How can Antony Blinken, even for a split second, ask us to join him in the illusion that America engages in wars to help poor people? At this point in history, this deep into the Cheney, Rumsfeld, Wolfowitz, Ukraine, Russia, Raytheon, I mean, we're so in it now, like, you know, why is it still poor people? Yep, still poor people, before you're absolutely submerged in total bullshit.
And most vulnerable populations, including in Yemen, including in Gaza.
So what's going on in Gaza? Are we going to do something about that? I mean, how is this even working now? I don't even understand what the grammar is anymore, do you?
That's why the United States launched Operation Prosperity Guardian.
Look, we've got to come up with a name for this thing, and it's got to be plausible, because public trust in us is at an all-time low. People think that we are warmongers, exploitative, colonialists, imperialists that don't care about our domestic population, far less the Houthis of the Yemen and their malfeasant activities. Could we call it Prosperity Guardian, or is that too much like a shit Marvel movie and it sounds too much like a lie? No, I think we are going to call it Prosperity Guardians of the Galaxy. 3.
Together with more than 20 countries to defend the safety and security of commercial shipping across the Red Sea.
And they were doing that thing, 20 countries. If it was bad, why would all these other countries that we're basically in charge of through NATO and the UN be involved?
It's also why over a dozen countries have made clear that the Houthis will be held accountable for future attacks. We'll continue to defend maritime security in the region as part of our overall effort to deter and prevent further regional conflict.
I've heard this so many times now, I can't even get it up for this now, can you? Like when you've just sort of like, I think I've seen this one. like even if you put like on a Seinfeld or something, you're like, oh, have I seen that? Oh no, it's a good one, this is good, it's got Newman in it. Like an episode of Friends, like the one where Joey is a Houthi and Rush going to invade there to protect all of the oil. What happened to that duckling? I'm afraid we left that with Matthew Perry.
I'm going to Yemen!
Oh.
To ensure the free flow of commerce.
And whatever happened with that, like what's happening with preparations for a supposed cyber attack that could take down even, energy grids?
Okay, so they've been talking about cyber attack on the energy grids and all this stuff in the media for a while, and cybersecurity companies, many of which are tied to intelligence, have been talking about that for a while too. But if you want to look at people like the World Economic Forum and their partners, they talk about cyber attacks too, but it's almost entirely focused on the financial system. And some of the biggest banks in the world are part of that. And it's basically, they have a plan. We don't know what it is, but they have a plan for what happens if there is a cyber attack on the financial system and how all the big banks are going to respond with the government, because this is basically the biggest banks in the world. And it's the UK government, Israel's government, and the US government, including the FBI and Department of Justice, all part of this thing. It's called Partnership Against Cybercrime. So, I mean, think about it this way. And a lot of people in the finance world pretty much know this, the economic collapse is basically an inevitability at this point, like a mathematical inevitability. The question is just like when it's going to collapse. And so obviously the people in power know that, and they want to manage that collapse to, herd people into CBDCs. At least we can see that whole picture now. Maybe a couple of years ago that wasn't so obvious, but now it's pretty obvious.
Right.
So they want to manage the collapse in such a way where they can do that, right? So part of this is how are they going to bring it all down, but absolve themselves of blame? They don't want to repeat 2008 where there was Occupy Wall Street and civil unrest against the banks. They want to have another boogeyman.
It's a mathematical certainty that the world's financial system is going to collapse, and the global elites are going to use it to usher in CBDCs and destroy online privacy. That's the message out from investigative journalist and author Whitney Webb. Whitney believes that 2024 is going to be an extremely disruptive year. The World Economic Forum is hinting at the possibility of a global cyber catastrophe, which Whitney believes is going to be used as a power grab. What is the end goal? Destroy online privacy and introduce central bank digital currencies, all with the purpose of gaining more control. However, make sure to stick around to the end of the video because Whitney makes the case for holding Bitcoin and cryptocurrency as a way to stay one step ahead. However, with the introduction of BlackRock and other financial institutions to Bitcoin in the form of the new Bitcoin ETFs, perhaps now that is also under attack. Also guys, only a small percentage of my viewers are actually subscribed. If you enjoy staying up to date with finance content, consider subscribing or liking the video. It's free and you can always change your mind. Now here's Whitney Webb with her warning.
What has to happen is that people, basically we have to decentralize, right? And at the local level, we have to start building parallel structures to the stuff going on. I mean, once I'm sure you guys, you talk about this, CBDCs, once that comes out, I mean, it's like game on, like you join that system, you are signing away, your freedom for good, pretty much. So something has to happen before then, or people have to prepare before then and have some sort of parallel structure in place. There's manufactured energy and food crises on the horizon in the US and a lot of the world. There have to be parallel structures in place for you to feed your family and have energy for your family. And Americans have to get started that right away. Obviously, the Biden administration is not going to solve your problems. And even if you manage to, I don't know, I doubt it will solve anyone's problems either, So it's like, it's up to us. We have to, stop waiting for some white knight at the ballot box and take accountability and responsibility for our own lives and make resilient communities. And that's the way to win. Okay, so I have crypto mainly because, financial censorship has been a big problem for independent media, especially in the past couple of years. So I like to have, diversity of assets, I guess you could say. Like, I don't want to have all my money in cash in the bank or something like that. Depending on what could happen, because there's a lot of different risks and a lot of different ways things could play out. So I do have crypto, but I also I don't promote it because I don't feel like it's my place to tell people how to spend their money and what to do. In my opinion, though, for me personally, I think the best investment I can personally make is in land right now, because I can have my own house. I can, at least in Chile, have off-grid energy pretty easily.
What's up, guys? Mikkel here. And there's been a lot of people saying recently that Ripple is abandoning the XRPL, that Ripple can do everything they want to do with private sidechains, and they don't need the XRP you and I own. In this video, I want to show you why that's the furthest thing from the truth, as well as break down some super exciting upgrades coming to the XRP ledger right now that are going to address one of the XRP ledger's biggest weaknesses. Since its inception, the XRP ledger has been one of the best blockchains for moving value from point A to point B, but it's really lacked development from independent developers. I want to share with you in this video why that's about to change in a really big way and why I think it's going to do amazing things for the XRP ledger over the long run. Last of all, at the end of the video, I want to break down some extremely exciting price charts happening right now with XRP and Bitcoin. Guys, the bears were so certain we were right around the corner from another market crash. The bears were so certain that 2024 was going to be a bearish year. I want to show you exactly why they have been completely wrong and the bulls are going to continue to be right throughout 2024. Make sure you stick around to the end of the video to see that. You are not going to want to miss it. Like always, guys, thank you so much to everyone who supports the channel. Make sure if you can, take a second to like the video and subscribe to my channel. It's really going to help me out so much. Also, if you guys ever need a good place to buy some XRP, make sure to check out my favorite exchange, Uphold, down in the description of this video. With that said, though, let's jump right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy the content. So I want to start this video off and break down some really exciting stuff coming to the XRP ledger that is going to make development skyrocket. Like I said in the intro, for a while, the XRP ledger really has been hindered by the fact that we don't have a lot of independent developers working on the network. And a lot of people have speculated why that might be the case, but in my opinion, it's fairly obvious. The XRP ledger since inception has been one of the best blockchains for moving value from point A to point B, but it hasn't had programmability. Different applications like Ethereum, Avalanche, all these different blockchains, right? They have a lot of programmability. Now, it slows them down in other aspects, but at the end of the day, it has allowed a lot of different developers to work on the network. The XRP ledger has always been lean, mean, and efficient. It's been really good for moving money, but it hasn't had that programmability to bring in developers. And because of that, since its inception, you could only really build payment applications on the XRP ledger. The only thing the XRP ledger was really good at was moving value from point A to point B and acting as an exchange. Well, guys, that is about to change in a really big way because we are seeing 3 massive new developments to the XRP ledger that is going to skyrocket its programmability and the amount of developers wanting to build on the network. The first thing that we are right around the corner from is the EVM sidechain. The EVM sidechain is essentially going to allow different Ethereum-based projects to be ported over to the XRP ledger. The Ethereum network is a great network for development, right? But it's not institutional grade. No institution is going to use the Ethereum network when it's slow and inefficient. You have to pay $80 transaction fees for every single transaction you make on the Ethereum network. It's completely unsustainable. So the EVM sidechain is going to allow different projects to port their project over from Ethereum to the XRP ledger without having to make any major changes.
Well, the U.S. border invasion is destroying America's biggest cities with crime, rampant crime, taxing city resources, of course, once reserved for people who pay taxes, and then combine that with defunding the police departments, and it's a perfect storm. Chicago is being ripped apart. Even Obama advisor David Axelrod admitted as much this weekend.
You know, whatever you think about what Governor Abbott has done, it was diabolically clever because by shipping these migrants to cities that call themselves now I'm forgetting the phrase, but sanctuary cities. Yeah. He has created issue. I come from Chicago. Chicago has been torn apart by this issue. New York has been torn apart by this issue. And suddenly Democrats are engaged in this issue in a different way than they had been. So that has been very effective.
But perhaps no city has had it worse than the Big Apple, America's largest sanctuary city. The great team over at muckraker.com found 3 massive migrant camps that are built using taxpayer dollars that were built on prime New York real estate. Watch this.
Since Joe Biden was put in office, hundreds of thousands of illegal aliens have taken refuge in New York City, the largest sanctuary city in the United States. To handle this, numerous illegal alien compounds have been established on what was once prime New York real estate. Muckraker conducted the first ever investigation of 3 of these compounds.
Anthony Rubin from muckraker.com joins us now, who is exposing these migrant camps. Anthony, welcome to the show. Amazing work here. Thanks for what you're doing.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me on.
So how did you first learn about these migrant camps, and who started building these? How long ago were they built?
These have been around since, honestly, around when Joe Biden was put in office. and they are very expensive. For example, one of them, the Row Hotel, which has been around for years now. It's estimated that costs anywhere from $500 per day per person, and there's around 5,000 people in there at any given time, roughly speaking. So you can imagine, just how expensive that is. The other one that we went to, or that we saw, was Randall's Island. That, again, estimated to cost around $20 million per month to operate, right? And so this is all funded largely, entirely by New York State and the federal government, of course. I guess that's obvious. And these things are massive. Between the three that we saw, we're talking, 5 digits worth of people.
Do we know which department on the federal side has been funding this into the states? Obviously, the states' coffers are being really taxed. We've heard from New York City Mayor Eric Adams how taxed they are. So, do we know what department? Is it coming from the Department of Homeland Security?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. And that's actually a fault of mine that I don't have that for you right now. I'm not entirely sure what department that's coming from. But it's split, and it's split between state and federal. And that's one of the things you keep hearing Mayor Adams talk about. He's like, well, we're going to get help from the state, or we're going to get help from the federal government on this, trying to sort of act like he's lessening the blow to the people of New York, who are really the ones that are getting hurt here. I mean, these are built on, like you said, prime New York real estate. The Row Hotel is 1 block from Times Square, right? You got homeless Americans that are walking around out there. I can't imagine being a New Yorker. If you're living in Manhattan, you're paying between state and federal and city taxes. At the end of the day, you're paying like 50% of your income in taxes. And you have these people that came over here, have never paid a dime, never contributed to the country. They're living for free and, getting free food and basically, lowering the price of your property and everything else. So that's what's going on. It must be infuriating for people living there.
Yeah, I used to work in New York City. I used to work 1 block away from the Row Hotel when I worked at Fox News in Midtown Manhattan. And of course, you're paying a city tax to work in the city. Even if you live out in New Jersey or Connecticut or some other place, you're paying that city tax. And of course, then you're also paying $30, I think it is, to come across and use the Lincoln Tunnel or use the Holland Tunnel to come through. You're paying all of these taxes coming and going into New York City. But these individuals, of course, don't have to pay any of that. We do know in other reports that FEMA dollars have been used, Federal Emergency Management Agency money, to set up and support some of these camps in other areas. So one can only imagine where this money is flowing from. But I want to talk about the camps themselves. You obtained this video. And can you just walk me through what these camps look like, who's in these camps, where are these individuals coming from, and what sort of staffing do they have?
Absolutely. So great question. So what types of individuals? Individuals from all over. Obviously, South Americans for sure, right? You got the Colombians, the Venezuelans, the Ecuadorians for sure. But then you got other ones. There was actually a couple of people that we saw in there from Russia, surprisingly. There were some Chinese in there, which I found interesting because usually the Chinese are more well-funded, right? But, we actually in this footage saw a Chinese man who was at the Row Hotel. If you check out Randall's Island, the footage there, it's actually full of men from Africa. We're talking Guinea, Senegal, and some other countries there mixed in, but those were some of the big ones. Morocco was another one. And, those are the kind of people that you're seeing.